I said that I would publish and share my backstory. And so here I am about to do it. My name is McKenna James. I'm a late blooming organist. In this video, I'm going to share with you my very unique backstory, why I started the organ as late as I did, and how I got here. So without further ado, please enjoy this story of a late bloomer. Hold on to your hats. Here we go. My childhood overall, I would say, was not very productive. I was the bad kid who often got in trouble at least once a day, and usually it was because I actually did something wrong. My musical interest began when I was around 4 or 5, when I saw a mariachi band at a Mexican restaurant my family would often go to. So I became interested in playing the violin because, I was curious about it. And my mom said, if you want to try out the violin, you need to take violin lessons. So I asked her for violin lessons, and she let me get them at 6 years old. Little did I know that I wasn't just trying out the violin. Once I started violin lessons, Mom forced me to keep taking them and to keep practicing the violin. However, the more I did it, the more I realized that violin was not the instrument for me and that I did not really like doing this. And the more she made me do it, the more I hated it. And then my mom had this piano in her house at the same time, and my little brother would often play around on it, and the more I watched him play around on the piano, the more I wanted to try it. So I tried playing things by ear on the piano, and I taught myself how to play it. And I found that I really liked this motion of playing a keyboard. And so naturally, I wanted to take piano lessons and drop the violin. My mom finally relented and let me take piano lessons at the age of 10, but she would not let me stop the violin. And I hated that. I often practiced a lot more piano at the expense of not practicing as much violin, much to my mom's chagrin. Because my teens were so full of drama and I did so many things in my teenage years, I'm just gonna talk about what I did for each instrument that I played in my teens. Throughout my teenage years, my mom forced me to continue to take violin lessons and practice the violin, but I hated it the more and more I got into it. I finally got to the point where during required violin recitals, I would mess up on purpose multiple times because I hated the violin and legitimately did not care about it. Finally, my mom let me drop the violin at age 16 so I could do other things that I felt were more productive. However, in my late teens, I became interested in the orchestra and playing in the orchestra. I didn't have much luck with the flute in my junior year, so I had this resurgence in interest for the violin. I picked the violin back up at the age of 18 and began taking violin lessons again. At this time, I studied violin a lot harder, more serious, and I was a lot more passionate about the violin than I ever had been. I played the violin in the Philharmonia of the Asheville Symphony Youth Orchestra program. And I also played in Blue Ridge Orchestra. After I graduated, I was waitlisted at the Brevard Music Center, and I was accepted off the waitlist, and I enrolled in the program. At this point, I was a violinist at Brevard Music Center. I was usually last chair or so, but overall, it was still an amazing experience regardless. At the age of 16, I became interested in learning to play the flute and in joining the band. In the summer of 2015, when I was 16, I had just turned 16, my mom got me flute lessons for my birthday, and I studied with a really amazing flute teacher, Kate Steinbeck, and she put me on a crash course of learning to play the flute, and I advanced very quickly. I got into the band at Asheville Christian Academy, and I traveled with them to Disney World, and needless to say, we had a really good time. Then, when I transferred to Asheville High School, I took my passion for the flute with me, and I also became interested in the symphony orchestra, and I became interested in becoming an orchestral musician. I went to Sheehy Summer School of Music with my flute and wanted to play in the orchestra, but I wasn't good enough, so I only got into the band. We did have a good time in the band, but I missed out on some things by not getting to play in the orchestra. I also auditioned for the Asheville Youth Orchestra in my junior year of high school. I didn't make it in, but I did get into the marching band at Asheville High School. I learned the art of marching. I also learned to play the piccolo somewhere along the line. I played piccolo in the marching band. I auditioned for the Wind Symphony, which is the most advanced band at Asheville High School, and I made it in for the Christmas season and the spring season. I had to drop band, sadly, because in my junior year I discovered I wanted to become a doctor, and band ran at the same time as AP Biology, so I wasn't able to do band anymore. Regardless of this, I still played flute on the side a little bit, but by my senior year I was focusing mostly on the violin. My first piano teacher, I would say, was lackluster. He did not push me as hard as I really needed to be pushed, and he made me learn songs that I did not like. As a result, this slowed a lot of progress that I could be making on the piano. I finally got to switch piano teachers at the age of 14 when I was in the 8th grade, the last year of middle school. I really enjoyed the recitals I got to play under Mrs. Susan Fair's tutelage. I will probably talk about Mrs. Fair multiple times throughout my videos because Mrs. Fair's had a huge and amazing impact on me. Mrs. Fair was tough on me, and she really pushed me beyond my limits every single year that I studied with her. In 2016, when I was 16 years old, under her tutelage, I got honorable mention in a state competition and won second prize in the Asheville piano competition. I dropped piano lessons in my senior year of high school due to burnout. When I was entering 6th grade at Asheville Christian Academy, which is the first year of middle school, my mom advised I join the band. So I joined the band and tried out the clarinet, but on the first day, I realized I did not like it. I really wanted to switch to choir. I managed to make that happen, and I absolutely loved singing in the choir throughout middle school. I also did musical theater, but I never got a lead part. Fast forward to high school, I began to really discover more about my voice and how I sang, and I really wanted to sing soprano. But the choir director, Mr. Aiken, his mind was set in stone, and he made me sing alto. In the spring semester of my freshman year of high school, I really wanted to sing soprano, but Mr. Aiken still wouldn't switch me to soprano and made me continue to sing alto. So, in addition to remaining in the upper school choir, I joined the Asheville Youth Choir, which is a youth choir program based at First Baptist Church of Asheville, North Carolina. The program has since expanded to multiple youth choirs, but at the time it was one youth choir consisting of middle and high school students. I got to sing soprano, and I traveled with the youth choir in the summer of 2015 to sing with numerous other youth choirs in the Washington National Cathedral, which was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I'm so glad that I had. I also started taking voice lessons around that summer. I loved my voice teacher, and she trained me well, and she knew that I was a soprano. I continued taking voice lessons with her my whole sophomore year of high school. Once I got into my sophomore year, I asked Mr. Aiken to please let me sing soprano. Even second soprano would be great. He still made me be an alto too, so I quit the choir. I kept singing with the Asheville Youth Choir until I graduated from high school, and I got to see the program expand to have a middle school choir, a lower school choir, and a choir for very young children, as well as the high school choir, which I was a part of when I graduated. Through the youth choir, I got to learn a lot about church and sacred music because we sang in numerous church services in numerous churches around Buncombe County. I also stopped doing musical theater. Also, in my latter years of high school, I played the flute and the violin in the orchestra at Arden Presbyterian Church. Those experiences, combined with my experiences in the Asheville Youth Choir, increased my interest in church and sacred music, and ultimately fueled my desire to become a full-time organist and choirmaster. Most organists start learning the piano at 3 to 5 years old and start learning the organ between 8 and 16 years old. I didn't get to do that, and you can maybe now see why. I was learning all these other instruments, practicing them, playing them, doing all these other things. There's no way mom would let me learn another instrument. Plus, I didn't see how I was supposed to be going about getting practice privileges, even if I could learn the organ. These were all barriers that stopped me from learning the organ in my teens, at least in my early and mid-teens. I didn't learn the organ until I was 19 years old. This brings me to my college year. I had always been fascinated by the organ, especially because I'd had experience in church music with the Asheville Youth Choir and all. However, I didn't really see my chance to learn the organ until I got to Houghton College. At this point, my curiosity got the best of me, and I got an organ graduate student to teach me how to play the organ. At the same time, I played the violin in the Houghton Symphony Orchestra and the flute in the Houghton Wind Ensemble. And I was pre-med. I did a lot of courses with labs. But my music major, yes, I was getting a BA in music with a concentration in violin in my freshman year of college. And then, once I learned enough organ, I got to the summer before my sophomore year of college. At this time, it was 2019. I was able to get practice privileges in a few churches in Asheville, and my love for the organ manifested itself. I got this longing and this drive to practice organ all the time. At the same time, I wanted to relearn how to play the piano. I eventually started relearning how to play the piano, and I went back to Mrs. Fair and took a few piano lessons with her to rebuild my piano technique. In addition, that summer, I had already auditioned and enrolled in the Masterworks Festival in Spartanburg, South Carolina, for the violin for the orchestra program. Now that I was enrolled in that, I had to commit to it, but my passion for organ completely overshadowed my passion for violin, which was quickly dying out at this point. I wanted organ practice privileges while I was at Masterworks, and this is where my path crossed with that of Dr. Brennan Schaffer. I had to speak to him to secure practice privileges, and in addition, I became interested in studying with him, because when I read his profile and viewed his picture, I realized, wow, this guy is young, and he's very accomplished for someone who is so young. Because I did actually think he was like 30 years old when I saw his picture, and then I met him in person and I still thought he was 30, and he had me guess his age, and he was actually like 42, but he looks so young. Anyways, he still really fascinated me, and I wanted to take some organ lessons with him. He encouraged me to switch careers and become a professional organist, because there are fewer and fewer of them per generation with each successive era. And so, seeing that I loved the organ so much, I started to really work on my organ and piano playing. And after I played that final concert at the Masterworks Festival with the violin, I put my violin away and I never took it back out again. I told Dr. Judy Congdon, my organ professor at Houghton, about the epiphanies I'd had that summer and what I discovered about myself. She advised I switch to the organ performance major. So I dropped pre-med and the BA in music, and I became a fully blown Bachelor of Music and organ performance major. However, the opportunities at Houghton were very limited. The School of Music was very small. Occasionally I got to play in a chapel or a student performer series recital, and I couldn't have a church job because the college was in the middle of nowhere. There was one church nearby and my organ teacher played there. and I didn't have a car. So the second semester of my junior year, until graduation, I studied remotely from right here in Western North Carolina. Zoom lessons were extremely hard until I got an external microphone, but even then, it was still hard. It was not the same, and Dr. Congdon had a hard time hearing me play sometimes and couldn't make out all of my mistakes. And I had limited access to an organ because I still did not have a regular church job in the first semester of my senior year of college. All this was to my detriment. I finally got a regular church job in February of 2022 at Fairfield Mountains Chapel. But by then I'd already been doing the application process for graduate school. I knew I wanted to get a master's degree in organ performance, and that I would most likely get a DMA as well. However, I didn't get into any of the graduate schools I wanted to get into, so I committed to a gap year. Dr. Shaffron changed church jobs in December of 2021 to being the organist and choirmaster at Holy Cross Episcopal Church in Tryon, which is much closer to where I live, which meant he was more accessible. He took me under his wing for my gap year, so I've been studying with Dr. Shaffron for about a year. In my reapplication process, I wasn't as successful as I would have liked, but I'm not giving up my dreams of going to my dream schools. However, I am pleased to say that I am going to USC's Thornton School of Music on a full ride scholarship, and that I am going to make the most out of my time there. And I am very excited to go to that school because that is a top tier school, and they do have amazing opportunities that Houghton did not have. It's definitely an upgrade for me, and I'm going to enjoy every bit of it and hopefully continue to make progress and move forward and strive towards my dreams. That is my story of a late bloomer organist. Thank you very much for watching, and please leave a like and subscribe as I will continue to publish more videos so you can continue to follow my journey through the organ world.